Welcome. I'm a first-year student at App State. I decided to major in economics because this topic is so vital to our society. My name is Hunter Sweat, and I'm from Daytona Beach, Florida. Although I have several interests, my life primarily revolves around one thing, and that is soccer. I've been playing since I was a young child, and I still play in college. I, of course, chose soccer as my personal practice. My argumentative research essay. I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to pick a topic that meant a lot to me, which is why I decided to choose soccer. However, as I began looking into the topic, I realized that there was not much debate within the community about soccer. So I decided to focus on youth sports and whether or not they're beneficial to children, which I found was a great topic to do my paper on. Looking back at my paper, having some distance from it, I am very satisfied with the way I represented my arguments in my research. I feel that I had a good amount of sources that all brought something a little bit different to the table and all provided new information that was useful to the audience. I also felt that I did a very, very good job introducing these sources, as some of them could be a bit complicated at times. However, I found a way to dub down the information just enough to where it wouldn't take away from the quality of the work that was done. The only thing I would redo if I had to was to put less personal opinion about each source and maybe provide more facts and information regarding the topic. One course goal that I felt I completely knocked out of the park was drafting with a clear purpose in mind. From the very first day I started drafting, I knew where I wanted to take my paper and where I wanted to end up. So throughout my drafts, I kept that purpose in mind, which really makes me feel that I knocked out that course goal. The other course goal I feel that we knocked out in class was being in a writing community and reflecting on our work as well as others' work. We had our coffee houses, which allowed us to both get feedback on our work as well as give feedback to others, which is something that made the process much easier, and I don't know if many of us would have finished without that. My podcast. I decided to do my podcast on a very, very similar topic to my research paper. The only thing that really differed was that my podcast included an interview with Coach Sweat. I decided to add this to the podcast because I felt that it didn't really fit well in the essay, however it could still add value to my argument. In shifting from writing an essay to a podcast, there was many things that changed, however there was only a few large things. The big thing was constructing your arguments in a way that didn't sound too formal. As you probably know, it's very, very challenging to put research studies and facts into a podcast, because I view a podcast as more of a conversation, and I think many people do as well. So it makes it very challenging to introduce sources in a way that sounds correct, and you almost have to take out some of the information to make that all work. The other aspect is an interview. It's very, very hard to include an interview in a research paper, whereas in a podcast, since it's already structured as a conversation, it makes it much easier to insert interviews, which can then help your argument. The last thing I will say would be the editing. Making a podcast is very, very hard because you're under a time constraint, yet you have a lot of information. And editing it all and making sure the sound is correct is something that's very, very challenging that I don't think many of us in the class realized. Writing the paper was simply grammar and formatting, but we didn't have to worry about how it sounded or going back after and making changes like that, which is what made transitioning a bit differently. For the goals that I knocked out, I feel that the main one would definitely be using different kinds of technology to find resources, as we had to use many different kinds of technology to even put the podcast together, but to also find the resources that were appropriate when switching from a research paper to a podcast. My closing thoughts for the semester. For growth, there were definitely barriers that I encountered in the course. Writing an essay of that length for a first-year student is never easy. However, through the help of my professor and my fellow classmates, I was able to overcome these barriers and stay focused. I feel that I was able to overcome every barrier that came my way, and I was not able to do it alone. But through the help, I was able to achieve what I wanted to, and I was able to defeat those barriers. And in closing, being able to convey messages and information to a different audience is a very vital skill to master, as in our world today, that is something that is extremely important. Being able to take a topic you're passionate about and give it to someone else in a certain way is something very, very crucial and that all of us will have to do for the rest of our lives. Thank you, Ms. Custer, for teaching us this semester, and I wish you all the best in the future.